Hi, I apologise that I'll be reading this statement, but there are so many people I'd like to include and who are involved in exposing this scandal that I'll have to do that. But so on behalf of Computer Weekly, I would like to thank the Whistler and Eileen Chubb for this award. I'm personally very flattered to be mentioned alongside journalism of private eye and Julian Assange, as I'm sure all the CW and people involved are. And to receive it from whistleblowers who without none of this would have been possible, none of my work or people before me's work would have been possible, makes this award something special. Without whistleblowers, large organisations seem to be able to do what they want. It shocks me to this day to think that it was the government-owned post office that did this. They thought they would get away with it, and they might have got away with it had it not been for whistleblowers coming forward. It came close to being swept under the carpet. Some of the stuff I was being told was so shocking, I kept thinking it can't be true. But whistleblowers coming forward gave me the reassurance that what I was being told was true, despite the post office sometimes aggressively denying this. There are of course many people involved in exposing this atrocious post office scandal, and I'm proud to have played a part in it, as I'm sure everyone at Computer Weekly has. But I should mention some names, as there are a few. We could start with Tony Collins, who in the late 1990s was writing about the project itself and the problems being experienced with it. And then in 2008, it was because of his well-respected name in journalism, he was contacted by some people who were affected. Then, of course, Rebecca Thompson, he gave her the story to work on, and she interviewed a group of sub-postmasters about their lives, how it had been turned upside down. And working with Rebecca was Bill Goodwin. Now, Bill Goodwin was the news editor, and he was helping Rebecca. He was dealing with lawyers, dealing with the post office, helping to get that along. It was 2010 when I took over the story. It still wasn't a big story because the Nationals hadn't taken up, and it remained this way for quite some time. But there are more people who need some thanks. I would like to thank Claire Cormack and the production team for rushing through breaking stories about the scandal, including in evenings and weekends, which we're not a newspaper, so that's quite rare. And believe me, correcting my grammar in a story I take time on is difficult enough, never mind one that I've rushed through. But the real people to thank are those that have trusted me with confidential information over the years, without which much of what I've written about the scandal would not have been possible. There are the people providing information and expert knowledge before the scandal was famous, when nobody knew about it. It was like chipping away at a lump of quartz with a pickaxe made of balsa wood. That's how hard it was getting information. But people came forward and gave us little bits of information, which led to other bits, it led to more and more. But I mean, you see this in the public inquiry now. There's people in the public inquiry who are under oath who are just not saying anything, and they're all saying they've forgotten things they can't remember. But thankfully, people did come forward over the years. Can't name them all because some people are still anonymous. But I'd like to mention a few of those, and it has to begin with Alan Bates, who is the former sub-postmaster and victim of the scandal, who campaigned. He set up the Justice for Sub-Postmaster Alliance in 2009, which we wrote about, and I've worked closely with Alan for many years. I mean, there was times when I'm talking to him every day, sharing information, telling me things, find out, and he took the post office to court and he beat them. And everything that's happened is down to this man. And then you have people like Joe Hamilton, who was one of the first sub-postmasters who came forward, whose name is on the Court of Appeal judgment, clearing the names of 39 people. It's Joe Hamilton and others. She needs praise for her non-stop dedication to this. Lee Castleton, another of the originals, needs to be praised. Another name that people might not know is somebody called Michael Rudkin, who was a sub-postmaster whose wife was accused of theft, prosecuted, which we now know was because of computer errors, but he knew all along. But he was a whistleblower. He told me things in 2013 that turned out to be true, that helped us push. And because he had experience working for the National Federation of Sub-Postmasters, he had inside knowledge, which he shared with us. And then I'd like to thank, for one of the biggest stories I did about an error, a computer error, a Dal mountain error, which was proved to cause losses, which was used in the cold case, is Mark Baker, who was a sub-postmaster, but he was the branch secretary of the Communication Workers Union for sub-postmasters. Him, along with Helen Baker, who they're not related, they're both Bakers. She's a former sub-postmistress who worked for the union, and Tim McCormack, another sub-postmaster. I worked with them to reveal this story, to find the details and find evidence, and we broke that story, and it proved that there were errors in the system that could, and we got an internal email that proved it, that it was the case. But there are many others. There were people ringing me all the time, telling me about the problems. They may not think they helped the case, but by telling me they had problems, I knew it was true. There were so many, and there was somebody recently, I heard the sad news that a contact of mine, must be going back to 2012, Isabella Wall. She recently passed away, but she was one of the people who came to me early on. But all these people who came forward